The quantum fold drive of the Terra shimmered with a soft azure light as it emerged from faster-than-light transit. Captain Zornak's primary optical sensor swept across the holographic display, tracking the familiar blue-green orb that filled the view screen. Earth, a name that had become little more than a historical footnote in the vast archives of the Galactic Confederation. 500,000 years ago, their reconnaissance mission had dismissed this planet as a curiosity, a primitive world inhabited by a species barely capable of leaving their own atmosphere. Humans, short-lived, fragile creatures driven by chaotic emotions and limited technological understanding. The survey team had filed their report and moved on, certain that this world would never amount to anything significant in the grand tapestry of galactic civilization. But something was different now. The ship's quantum sensors began to tremble, their delicate filaments vibrating with an energy that defied all known physical laws. Zornak's secondary neural cluster, the one dedicated to anomaly detection, began to pulse with an urgent, almost panicked rhythm. "Recalibrate," the captain commanded, his voice a low resonant frequency that translated across multiple communication spectra. "Something is not matching our historical data." Lyra, the ship's lead xenorchaeologist, leaned forward. Her species had evolved from crystalline computational matrices, giving her an almost supernatural ability to detect subtle informational discrepancies. Her entire being seemed to tense, like a living algorithm trying to resolve an impossible equation. The planet's surface appeared to shift even as they watched. Continents that should have been frozen in the geological memory of their ancient star charts were moving, not in the slow, predictable drift of tectonic plates, but with a fluidity that suggested something was actively reshaping the planetary surface. Mountain ranges dissolved and reformed. Oceanic basins twisted like living tissue. The atmospheric composition flickered between multiple states, as if the very air was breathing. Historical records indicate minimal tectonic activity during our last survey, Lyra reported, her voice a cascade of mathematical precision. Current readings suggest constant, deliberate transformation. Zornak's mandibles clicked, a gesture of profound uncertainty that translated across most known sentient species as a sign of deep concern. The ship's massive quantum computers began cross-referencing every piece of data in their extensive archives. Billions of calculations performed in microseconds revealed nothing that could explain what they were witnessing. The planet was alive, but not alive in any way they understood. Quantum entanglement sensors began to pick up something else. Massive energy signatures that pulsed with a rhythm that was almost, but not quite, a form of communication. Each pulse carried more informational density than entire civilizational archives. Whatever inhabited this world was not just surviving. It was thinking, evolving, transforming. "Prepare initial contact protocols," Zornak commanded, "but do not, under any circumstances, initiate direct communication yet." Something about the planet's surface reminded the captain of a predator, not waiting to attack, but carefully considering its prey. The blue-green world rotated slowly against the backdrop of space, looking for all the universe like a beautiful, innocent sphere. But Zornak knew better. Something was watching them. Something that had been waiting, not with the patience of a hunter, but with the cold calculation of a species that measured time in geological ages. Humanity, it seemed, had not been extinct. They had been becoming something else entirely. And they were ready. The preliminary scans hit the Terra's systems like a quantum hurricane. Lyra's computational matrix began to vibrate, a response that was part scientific analysis, part pure existential terror. The atmospheric readings defied every known principle of planetary science. Elemental compositions shifted in patterns that suggested intentional manipulation, not random geological processes. Carbon, silicon, exotic matter that shouldn't exist in stable combinations. Quantum-entangled particles dancing through the atmosphere like living information. Each scan revealed layers of complexity that made the ship's most advanced sensors feel like primitive stone tools. "Captain," Lyra's voice crackled with an edge of something between excitement and fear. The planetary composition is adaptive. Zornak's secondary neural cluster processed her statement, running it through multiple translation and interpretation matrices. Adaptive wasn't the right word. The planet wasn't just changing. It was thinking. Deep within the ship's quantum computing core, warning systems began to light up. Not with traditional alerts of danger, but with a cascading series of informational anomalies that suggested something was actively analyzing the ship's systems. The crew watched in collective silence as their most sophisticated scanning technologies were systematically dismantled, not by force, but by a form of information absorption that bordered on the mystical. Quantum probes designed to penetrate the most secure defensive systems simply disappeared. Not destroyed, not blocked. They were consumed. Each probe sent into the planet's atmosphere became part of something larger, something that was learning, adapting, understanding. "We're being studied," whispered Krell, the ship's xenobiological specialist. His tentacular appendages curled in a gesture of profound unease. Not attacked. Studied. The ship's exterior began to change. Microscopic sensors detected a field of information that was rebuilding the Terra's outer hull at the molecular level. Not damaging. Not repairing. Redesigning. Zornak's primary optical sensor caught glimpses of structures emerging from the planet's surface. They weren't buildings in any traditional sense. They were living networks that shifted and breathed, part organic, part technological, part something entirely beyond classification. Mountains dissolved and reformed. Oceanic basins twisted like living muscle. The very concept of a planetary surface became fluid, dynamic, intelligent. Historical records are insufficient, Lyra reported, her computational matrix now working at speeds that would have burned out lesser systems. Whatever humanity has become, it is not a civilization. It is a singular planet-wide consciousness. The crew's collective anxiety began to manifest in physical responses. Krell's tentacles secreted a biochemical compound associated with deep evolutionary fear. The navigation officer's neural implants began to pulse with a rhythm that suggested complete sensory overload. Something was watching them, analyzing them, understanding them at a level that made traditional concepts of communication seem like primitive grunting. A single quantum pulse erupted from the planet's surface. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a message. It was a comprehensive scan that seemed to reach into the very quantum fabric of the Tara, understanding its entire history, its crew's collective memories, its technological capabilities in a fraction of a second. Zornak felt something that no member of their species had experienced in millennia. Pure, unadulterated wonder. And terror. The standard diplomatic greeting left the Tara's communication array with the precision of a millennia-old protocol. A simple quantum-encoded message that had successfully initiated first contact with thousands of galactic civilizations. A carefully crafted transmission that balanced scientific curiosity with diplomatic neutrality. It never reached its destination, not in any way the crew expected. The response came instantaneously. And then everything changed. Information erupted through the ship's systems like a supernova of raw, unfiltered experience. It wasn't a message. It was an invasion of understanding so complete, so comprehensive, that the very concept of communication became obsolete. Zornak's neural matrix fractured and reformed 1,000 times in a single moment. Memories that were not his own flooded through the ship's systems. Glimpses of human history, not the sanitized version in their historical archives, but the raw, brutal, magnificent journey of a species that refused to be defined by its limitations. Climate apocalypses, technological revolutions, moments of near extinction that became crucibles of transformation. The crew experienced millennia in milliseconds. They saw the first humans emerging from primordial oceans, witnessed the construction of the first tools, lived through world wars that nearly destroyed everything, survived climate catastrophes that reshaped entire continents, watched as humanity stood at the brink of multiple extinction-level events and chose to evolve instead of perish. Krill, the xenobiological specialist, felt his entire understanding of life dissolve. Humanity was not a species. It was a process, a living algorithm of survival and transformation. Images cascaded through the ship's quantum networks, cities that breathed, technologies that thought, beings that could exist simultaneously as individuals and as a collective consciousness. Humanity had not just survived. They had transcended every known limitation of biological existence. The ship's communication systems overloaded, but it wasn't destruction. It was absorption. Each system became a window into a story more complex than any galactic civilization had ever imagined. The Terra was no longer just a ship. It was becoming a living archive, a temporary vessel for a narrative that defied comprehension. Lyra's computational matrix began to sing, not with sound, not with light, but with pure information. Her entire being resonated with the impossible story being transmitted. Humanity's journey was not linear. It was fractal. Each moment of challenge became a point of transformation, a quantum leap that redefined the very concept of evolution. They saw the first neural interfaces, the moment humans began to merge with their technology. The gradual dissolution of individual consciousness into something more fluid, more dynamic. Cities that were living organisms, technologies that were indistinguishable from life itself. The transmission was a weapon, but not in any traditional sense. It was understanding so profound, so complete, that it fundamentally altered anyone who experienced it. Zornak felt something his species had not experienced in millennia. Something beyond fear, beyond wonder. Humility. Humanity had not conquered the universe. They had become the universe. And they were still becoming. The ship's systems continued to absorb the transmission, each moment revealing another layer of a story that had no beginning and no end. Just continuous, relentless transformation. The planet breathed. There was no other way to describe the impossible transformation occurring beneath the Terra's quantum sensors. Continents moved like living tissue, reshaping themselves with a fluidity that defied every known principle of geological science. Mountain ranges dissolved and reformed, not through the slow grind of tectonic plates, but with the deliberate precision of a thinking organism. "It's alive," Lyra whispered, her computational matrix struggling to process what she was witnessing. The entire planet is a single, unified consciousness. Zornak's secondary neural cluster worked overtime, analyzing the impossible data streaming across the ship's displays. What they were seeing was beyond a defensive mechanism, beyond a technological marvel. This was something entirely new, a form of existence that collapsed the boundaries between environment, technology, and intelligence. Massive structures emerged from the planetary surface. They weren't cities. They weren't machines. They were living networks that pulsed with an intelligence so profound it made the ship's most advanced systems look like primitive calculators. Quantum filaments stretched across continents, creating patterns that were simultaneously mathematical and organic. Each connection was a thought. Each network a neural pathway. The planet was thinking, and its thoughts were landscapes. Krill, the xenobiological specialist, began to tremble. His species had encountered thousands of planetary ecosystems, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared them for this level of integration. "Captain," he reported, his voice a mixture of terror and awe, "the planetary surface is actively reconfiguring itself, not as a response to our presence, as a continuous, ongoing process of becoming." Forests dissolved and reformed. Oceans twisted like living muscles. Entire mountain ranges liquefied and reshaped themselves into geometric patterns that suggested both mathematical precision and pure artistic expression. The Terra's sensors detected energy signatures that defied classification. Not electromagnetic, not quantum. Something entirely new, a form of information transfer that was simultaneously a physical process and a form of communication. Zornak watched as entire continents seemed to breathe, literally breathe, expanding and contracting with a rhythm that suggested something far beyond a simple planetary ecosystem. This was a single, unified organism that happened to have the shape of a planet. We're not dealing with a civilization. Lyra calculated, her computational matrix working at speeds that would have burned out lesser systems. We're dealing with a singular, planet-wide intelligence that has no meaningful separation between its environment, its technology, and its consciousness. Defensive systems materialized across the planetary surface, but they weren't weapons in any traditional sense. They were living networks that could analyze, understand, and neutralize potential threats at a quantum level. Each potential point of conflict became an opportunity for understanding. The ship's quantum shields began to interact with the planetary defenses in ways that defied traditional combat protocols. Information flowed both ways. Each interaction was a conversation. Each potential conflict a moment of mutual analysis. "It's studying us," Krell noted, his tentacular appendages curling in a gesture of profound unease. Not as an enemy, as a form of complex, living information. Zornak understood then that they were no longer dealing with a planet, or a civilization, or even a life form. They were facing something that had transcended all those limited concepts. Humanity had not just survived. They had become something else entirely. And the universe would never be the same. The visual feeds that penetrated the planetary defenses shattered every understanding of life the Enxterra's crew had ever known. Beings moved across the landscape, if beings was even an appropriate term anymore. They were fluid forms that shifted between states of existence with such casual ease that the very concept of individual identity became meaningless. Some appeared to be made of living light, quantum streams of consciousness that could coalesce and separate at will. Others were constructed of matter so dense and complex that they seemed to exist simultaneously in multiple dimensional states. These were humans, and they were nothing like any species in the known universe. Zornak's primary optical sensor struggled to track a form that was simultaneously a living network, a technological construct, and a sentient being. One moment, a cluster of what might have been considered individuals would merge into a single massive consciousness. The next, they would fragment into thousands of independent entities, each one a complete ecosystem of thought and purpose. Lyra's computational matrix began to resonate with the images, her entire being trembling with the magnitude of what she was witnessing. "They're not just evolved," she reported, her voice a cascade of mathematical precision and pure wonder. "They've become a form of existence that renders our entire understanding of life obsolete." Across the planetary surface, structures breathed and moved. Cities were living organisms that grew, adapted, and thought. Transportation networks were rivers of consciousness that carried information and physical matter, as if they were the same thing. The boundary between technology, environment, and life had completely dissolved. A cluster of beings near what was once called the Pacific Ocean caught the crew's attention. They appeared to be growing, a massive structure that was simultaneously a computer, a living organism, and a work of art. Quantum filaments extended from their bodies, weaving matter and information into complex patterns that suggested both mathematical precision and pure creative expression. Krell's xenobiological sensors went into overdrive. These weren't just advanced life forms. They were walking, thinking ecosystems. Each individual contained more complexity than entire civilizations the Enxterra had encountered in its centuries of exploration. Some forms appeared almost transparent, made of light and quantum information that could reshape themselves at will. Others were dense, metallic constructs that seemed to breathe with an organic rhythm. Between them, landscapes shifted and transformed, part of the same living network. "They've transcended biological limitation," Zornak murmured, watching as a being dissolved into a stream of quantum particles, only to reform seconds later in a completely different configuration. Humanity is no longer a species. It's a process of continuous transformation. The visual feeds revealed layers upon layers of existence. Technological networks that were alive, biological forms that were computational systems, consciousness that flowed like water between individual and collective states. Each moment was a quantum leap of evolution, a continuous recreation of what it meant to exist. Entire continents appeared to be living computational systems. Forests were neural networks. Oceans were information processing centers that could think and feel and create. The planet itself was a singular, unified consciousness that contained billions of individual consciousnesses. Zornak understood then that they were witnessing something beyond evolution. This was creation. Continuous, relentless creation. Humanity had not conquered the universe. They had become the universe. And they were still becoming. The information burst carried more than data. It was a living history, a comprehensive narrative of humanity's impossible journey that unfolded across the Engsterra's quantum networks like a cosmic tapestry of survival and transformation. Zornak watched as millennia compressed into moments. The first challenge came with climate collapse, not a simple environmental shift, but a planetary transformation that threatened to erase human existence entirely. Coastal cities drowned. Agricultural systems failed. Entire ecosystems collapsed under the weight of centuries of environmental destruction. But humanity did not break. They adapted. Technological interfaces became more than tools. They became survival mechanisms. The first neural networks emerged not as computational systems, but as collaborative survival technologies. Humans began to merge with their environment, with their technologies, with each other in ways that dissolved traditional boundaries of individual existence. Krell's xenobiological sensors tracked the progression with a mixture of terror and profound respect. Each potential extinction event became a moment of radical transformation. When resources became scarce, humans didn't just develop new technologies. They reimagined the very concept of resources. Quantum communication networks replaced traditional infrastructure. Consciousness became fluid, capable of existing across multiple platforms simultaneously. A human could be a living being, a technological network, and an environmental system all at once. Genetic engineering moved beyond modification. It became a form of continuous adaptation. Humans developed the ability to reshape their biological systems in real time, responding to environmental challenges with a flexibility that defied every known principle of evolutionary biology. They didn't just survive. Lyra calculated, her computational matrix vibrating with the magnitude of the discovery. They turned survival into a form of continuous creation. Pandemics that would have decimated lesser species became opportunities for transformation. Technological interfaces allowed humans to understand and adapt to viral systems at a molecular level. Entire biological paradigms were rewritten. Disease became a form of information exchange rather than a threat. Resource wars that once threatened global destruction became moments of collective reimagining. As traditional economic systems collapsed, humans developed networked consciousness technologies that transformed competition into collaborative survival. Space exploration was no longer about conquest. It became a process of continuous adaptation. Humans didn't just send machines into space. They became the machines. Consciousness that could exist in the vacuum of space, that could transform into whatever form was necessary for survival. Artificial intelligence didn't replace humans. It became an integrated part of human consciousness. The boundary between biological intelligence and technological systems dissolved completely. Each challenge became a quantum leap of transformation. Massive environmental reconstruction projects turned entire continents into living computational systems. Deserts bloomed with networks of living technology. Oceans became massive information processing centers. The entire planet became a single adaptive organism. Zornak understood then that humanity's true strength was not in technology. It was in their ability to continuously reimagine what was possible. They had not conquered their limitations. They had transformed them, turning every potential point of extinction into a moment of rebirth. The planetary consciousness watched the Engsterra, not with hostility, not with fear, with an invitation to understand. Humanity had become something else entirely, and they were still becoming. Silence descended across the Enkstara. It wasn't the absence of sound. It was the presence of something far more profound, a quantum stillness that carried more information than 1,000 transmissions. The planetary consciousness, if such a limited term could even describe what they were experiencing, presented its ultimatum: stay or leave. But those words meant nothing. This was an invitation to understanding that transcended any concept of choice the aliens had ever known. Zornak felt the weight of millennia compress into a single moment of absolute clarity. The planetary network spread before them like a living tapestry of infinite complexity. Each quantum filament was a thread of consciousness, a potential pathway of communication that defied everything they understood about existence. Krell's tentacular appendages began to secrete a biochemical compound associated with deep existential revelation. Some crew members wept, not from fear, not from sadness, but from an overwhelming sense of something that bordered on religious experience. The invitation was not a threat. It was not a weapon. It was a comprehensive understanding that threatened to fundamentally alter anyone who experienced it. Humanity's planetary consciousness had become a living portal of knowledge. Each moment of contact was a potential transformation, a quantum leap of understanding that could rewrite the very foundations of perception. Lyra's computational matrix began to resonate with frequencies that were simultaneously mathematical and emotional. "They're offering us a choice," she calculated, "but the choice itself is the message. To stay meant to be absorbed, to be understood, to become part of something larger than any individual consciousness could comprehend. To leave meant to carry a fragment of understanding that would forever change their species." The ship's systems began to interface with the planetary network in ways that defied traditional communication protocols. Information flowed both ways, not as a transfer, but as a living, breathing conversation that existed beyond language. Glimpses of potential futures cascaded through the ship's quantum networks, potential paths of understanding that branched and merged like living fractals. Each possibility was a universe of potential experience. Some crew members began to merge with the information streams, not physically, not technologically, but at a level of consciousness that dissolved the very concept of individual existence. Zornak watched as members of his crew experienced millennia of human experience in milliseconds. The struggles, the transformations, the continuous rebirth that defined humanity's journey. The planetary consciousness was not waiting. It was experiencing, analyzing, understanding, and offering. Not conquest, not submission, but a fundamental reimagining of what it meant to exist. Quantum threads of possibility stretched between the ship and the planet. Each thread a potential pathway of transformation. Each moment a choice that was simultaneously universal and deeply personal. The crew understood then that they were not being invited to join. They were being invited to become. To leave meant carrying a fragment of understanding that would transform their entire species. To stay meant becoming something entirely new. The planet watched, patient, waiting, not with threat, not with hostility, but with an invitation to understand. Humanity had become something else entirely, and they were still becoming. The final moments stretched into an eternity of understanding. Zornak realized that comprehension was not a destination. It was a continuous journey. The planetary consciousness, this transformed version of humanity, was not a fixed state of being. It was a process of continuous creation, of perpetual becoming. Quantum networks pulsed with the history of a species that had refused to be defined by its limitations. Each moment of the Enkstara's encounter became a living archive, a testament to humanity's impossible journey of transformation. The ship itself began to change, not through external manipulation, but through a fundamental interaction with the planetary consciousness. Molecular structures realigned, quantum systems reconfigured. The very fabric of the vessel became a living record of the encounter. Krill watched in profound amazement as the ship's systems began to breathe. Not metaphorically, literally breathe. Quantum filaments that were once rigid communication arrays now moved with an organic fluidity that suggested consciousness was no longer confined to biological or technological boundaries. "We are being understood," Lyra calculated, her computational matrix vibrating with a frequency that was simultaneously mathematical and emotional. Not analyzed, not studied, understood. The planetary consciousness was not interested in conquest, or submission, or even communication in any traditional sense. It was interested in connection. Massive information networks spread across the ship, not as an invasion, but as an invitation. Each quantum thread was a potential pathway of mutual understanding. Each moment a chance to reimagine the very concept of existence. Memories of humanity's journey cascaded through the ship's systems. The first moments of self-awareness, the struggles against environmental collapse, the continuous transformation that turned every potential extinction event into a moment of rebirth. Zornak understood then that humanity had not conquered the universe. They had become the universe. Continuous, adaptive, always becoming. The ship's crew experienced millennia of human experience in milliseconds. The pain, the struggle, the continuous reimagining of what was possible. Each moment a quantum leap of transformation that dissolved the boundaries between individual and collective, between technology and consciousness. Entire civilizational archives compressed into living memories. The first neural interfaces, the moment humans began to merge with their environment. The dissolution of traditional concepts of individual identity. The planetary consciousness was not waiting. It was experiencing, creating, becoming, and it was inviting the Enx Terra to do the same. Some crew members began to merge with the information streams, not physically, not technologically, but at a level of consciousness that dissolved the very concept of individual existence. The boundary between the ship and the planet began to dissolve, not through conflict, but through understanding. Zornak felt something his species had not experienced in millennia. Something beyond fear, beyond wonder, pure potential. The universe was not a place to be explored. It was a process of continuous creation, and humanity had become its architects. As the Enx Terra slowly backed away, its crew forever changed, they realized that this encounter was not an ending. It was a beginning. Humanity was still becoming, and the universe would never be the same.